This Downtime podcast is brought to you by BVM Moto. Shop online or in-store for great deals and get professional advice on your favourite bikes, parts, clothing and accessories.
Right, we're doing a bit of a alfresco podcast. We're currently on our way back from the first round of the S3 National Championship, which was held by the Westmoreland Club, Motorcycle Club, and it was the Lonsdale Trail up in the Lake District. Very cold, but enjoyable day. How did you get on, Laurence?
Yeah, okay. I was quite pleased with my riding in a lot of places, but then a few slack marks towards the end. So that wasn't very good. But yeah, generally speaking, yeah, really, really happy. Good day out. So yeah, very enjoyable. How about yourself?
Yeah, I had a good day. It was a bit on the easier side than I was expecting, maybe. Quite tight sections in places, with nothing that big, which is kind of nice as well at the same time, not to be looking at something and thinking, oh, I'm a bit scared what could happen if that goes wrong. But I really like the club, that the fact that they aren't afraid to use all their terrain that they've got. So they'll use rocky streams, but they'll also use the muddy banks, tree roots, everything, rocky outcrops. Like, yeah, it's not just like a one-trick pony type of event.
Yeah, it's very much, we rode everything today, didn't we? So we started off with some kind of almost like rocky outcrops where it was like kind of feeling for grip, and then down into the streams. It's good because it doesn't really matter what number you are so much when there's more variance in the sections. If it's literally just streams all day, then you really want to be right at the back, don't you? Because it gets so much easier. But there was quite an interesting section today. I think it was kind of maybe section 8 or 9, a double sub, where you kind of rode up the stream and then onto the banks. And it was like you wanted to be late for the stream, but you wanted to be early on the banks, because the banks they cut up a lot more than they seem to do down south. So they kind of go from being very rideable and to basically just, how would you describe it? Like,
yeah, I'd say, like, you're right. Like, we were literally in that queue for that section you're on about. We were literally watching the section deteriorate, as each rider went through it, wasn't it? And apparently a guy came up to me later on in the day that said, apparently I was one of the last people to actually get out there clean. Like, after me, there wasn't much happening at all. Like, and there was a lot of fives. But yeah, the streams, again, they were super slippery and you wanted to be right at the back for that. But yeah, as soon as you got onto any of the bankings, I think it would have been a better advantage to be the front. So it all kind of added to the competition, didn't it? Like, I see quite a few of the top riders on our route actually cracked on and pushed on, didn't they? Whether they were worried about the rain that was supposed to be forecast for later in the day as well. But yeah.
I think a lot of people just, they did. We finished well within our time, didn't we? We were kind of
almost an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, what time is it now? It's 10 to 5, and we're kind of just near Stafford on the M6. So we're making good progress home. I think our finish time was like 4 o'clock. But yeah, everyone got moving. Kind of, there wasn't really any queues, was there? It was a real nice kind of flowing trial. It's interesting when they start like 2 a minute, and sometimes you almost end up with like a section where basically everyone's there and it's a big queue, but that didn't seem to happen to us today anyway, did it? It just...
No, there was always people at the sections, but it was no more than a 5-minute wait, was there? It never felt like it was an issue, I didn't think, anyway.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I think everyone got to move on. They're a bit worried about the rain. You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone got to move on. They're a bit worried about the rain, and it was cold. It was definitely kind of going back to we had quite a ride from like section 35 to the last section, which was back at the start, and that was freezing. That was kind of one of those times on the road when you think, oh, this is cold. But yeah, good day.
Yeah, and then at the end, our support vehicle was nowhere to be seen as he was picking up stragglers from the event. So we were freezing cold, huddled behind the wall whilst we were waiting for you.
I think the youth of today don't know how easy they got it.
I don't know about that.
Cold.
I remember being a kid and we'd always have to be all over the place for you, waiting for you on the side of the road.
I meant about the cold, complaining about the cold.
Well, me and Laurence are hardened to the cold because anyone who's visited the shop recently will know how cold the shop is right now at the moment. So we've been getting toughened up for these conditions. Yeah, we're also joined, I should mention, by my dad, Mark Talbot, who has been going around all day doing our support for the S3 round. With it being, do you know how long it was round today?
14 miles.
14-mile round loop. We needed to fuel up 3 or 4 times throughout the day. So my old man was here doing our fuel and had spare clothes and food for us.
Early in the morning, so you didn't have to get up and drive.
Yeah, getting up, picking us up from my house at 5:45 this morning. So a long old day. We're going to be out on the road for around 13 hours. You more like 14 or 15. But the things you do for your children, huh?
Yeah.
But no, all went all right. Can't really complain. I'm glad that we're back out on it because it's been a little while since I've been riding trials. So I've ridden the odd random bike here and there. But yeah, definitely good to be back out at the Nationals. And to start, I reckon we've both rode fairly well. I know we could both argue we both had some pretty slack ones in places, but that's trials, isn't it? And I don't know if we're ever going to really be able to rectify that unless we started riding hell of a lot more, realistically.
Yeah, you can't just, me and Craig are both busy, kind of families, work. Craig's got a new house he's doing up. We haven't really got the time to be out practicing week in, week out. So you're just not on the ball quick enough, are you? Sometimes I just need to have that almost like hold it for a split second longer and you have a 1, or the opposite and you try and hold on too long and then have a 5.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, it's just that time in our lives, isn't it? But I still think we're at the sharper end on the national scene still, which is good. But like I say, if you really want to do well in these, you kind of need to be putting in a few more hours than what we are on the bikes for sure. But yeah, TRS went really well all day, didn't miss a beat, first time out on it, just felt comfortable straight away, really, really liking the suspension on it. This year it's got a tech rear shock, which we've never really had much dealings with at the shop before, have we?
No. Standard on gases, aren't they? But
yeah, it's not a gas isn't a bike that we actually sell from new, so it's not something that we've had much dealings with. But mine is set a bit differently than what comes standard out of the box, with thanks to Steve Saunders at TRS UK and also one of our team riders, Tyler Rendell, and also with input from Jamie Galloway, which is one of the top TRS riders in the country. Got a few different settings for it, which we've just done to mine straight out of the box. And up those streams, it was just soaking everything up. I think I just never looked like I was straying offline all day. I don't know, from what you could see.
You definitely strayed offline from time to time.
Yeah, but not in the streams.
You were riding well. You were fighting it. You were, there's a couple of rides you had that were, really, really good.
And your beater was going all right?
Yeah, the beater's really good. It's very soft. It's very easy to ride.
Are you preferring being on the 250 at Nationals than the 200?
I think so. The 250 just in the streams has got a little bit more bottom end, so you don't have to kind of rev it quite as hard.
You just ride off the bottom.
Yeah, the 200 you have to kind of almost be revving it more than all the other riders as well, which is quite hard to do. It's quite a different bike to what basically everyone else is using. So you kind of have to be kind of a nice low gear and kind of have a bit more revs on it. But the 250 you can ride right down from nothing, and it's completely standard. My bike, it's got all the it's a UK spec bike, so it's got all the weights on, so it's really, really, really soft, and I really like it. Yeah, really easy, very easy bike to ride.
Yeah, you definitely look the best you've ever looked on a bike for some years, I would say. But yeah, that's maybe the one thing I struggled with coming off the Sherco is like, I reckon I made the gear choice wrong on a couple of sections, which one resulted in a couple of marks lost. But I just picked the wrong gear. I should have put it in first and ended up in second. But
you should have listened to Darren Wesley, shouldn't you? Because he was telling you to go first.
yeah, Darren Wesley I should listen to Darren Wesley more. Although he made a few mistakes today with gear choices, and we were having a few arguments throughout the day about what gear we should be in, both being TRS riders. But he is, I hope you don't mind me saying, but he's a bit more old school, and he does use first gear, where I hear a lot of the younger guys now, they don't even ever use first gear, do they? Which I just think is crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting, the different styles of riding, isn't it? There's a lot of kind of older generation riders. Older generation riders, a bit wrong, but wrong terminology maybe. But, people are riding nationals well into their late 50s, and they've got that real traditional old school style of riding. Every section's first gear, very little trick riding, just floating the front end around, and it's really good to watch. And then the top boys are they don't use first gear, do they? They're seconds, kind of third gear.
They got a bit of pace in the sections normally, aren't they? They're quite
hopping all the time, kind of a real different style of riding, which is, they do different sections to us, so don't they, at the end of the day now, all this.
You reckon first gear is still the way forward, do you? Even on a beta that everyone complains is a bit too low first gear.
No, bottom is king. Bottom is everything. You do everything in bottom.
That's what you always used to try and get me to do. And in Scotland, the first year I rode, when you took me round, it took a while for me to understand that, I think, to get my head around it, didn't it? I remember struggling there's a few big waterfalls, and I'd be like, wow, it needs to be second or third, and you'd be trying to tell me to put it in bottom. But yeah, I'm becoming more and more of a fan of first gear the more I ride, for sure. So whilst we do have my dad here, we thought we'd grab this opportunity to talk about the Scottish 6 Day. You've done, 21 Scottishes? 20. You've done, my old man's done 20. I've done now 15. Gareth's done a few. Between us, we've got over 40? Over 40 Scottishes.
So 19 this year would be the first year since 1995. Yeah. There's not a Talbot going to be in the 6 days.
Yeah. I'm not riding it this year. And how many Scottishes have you done, Laurence?
6. But yeah, last one was a little while ago now. 2010 was the last year I rode.
So between us in here, we've done 40, if my maths is right. 19, you're 6, that's 25. And then me, 15, that's 40, isn't it?
Yeah, 40 years of experience.
40 Scottish 6 Day trials worth of experience in a van, travelling home from a trial.
And as kind of clubman riders as well, kind of reasonable riders, but...
Wow, some of us are better than others, because some of us might not have had first class awards before.
Who hasn't had a first class award?
Well, have you had how many first class awards have you got?
Have you? 2. Have you? Yeah.
Okay. Now,
the Scottish 6 Day trial at the back of the trial where I was is a different trial to the likes of you, and a different trial again to the likes of, say, Steve Saunders ever rode. It's a different trial.
It's harder now, is it?
No, I mean, it's the same year, but it's nothing to him, but it's an achievement to likes of me and us, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's an achievement just to finish, I'd say. And in fairness, you're a first generation trials rider as well, aren't you? I had the luxury of having you to teach me from quite a young age riding a bike, where you didn't start until you're in your 20s?
Yeah, that's it. 20 something. I can't remember now. Yeah.
And wasn't the first trial you ever saw the Scottish 6 Day?
Yeah. Leaning on the fence overlooking the West End car park, saying to Nipper Allen, "What's all this then, Bri?" And he said, "This is the Scottish 6 Day trial."
So yeah, you were up on a you were into road bikes when you had a road bike, went up with a few work colleagues on a road trip around Scotland and come across it. So that was the first ever trial my dad saw, let alone, so it was like quite a big thing to us and our family, really.
Yeah, 5 years later, I was riding it. Yeah, so...
Yeah, I don't know if there's that many people that could say that as this day, is there?
There's not loads. There's Warren, isn't there, who starred in what year was that?
Oh, yeah, that was, 2-3 years ago? No, probably 2.
Yeah.
It was Abby was pregnant, Flora's 2 and a bit, so it's like 3 years ago. Yeah, Warren. Yeah, but there's not many people now, like, there's a lot of people that aspire to do the event, but I'd say most people who ride it have been riding for quite some time and get to that certain level of that certain ability before they even try to get an entry in the event.
People almost don't push themselves maybe a little kind of in trials sometimes and get outside their comfort zone. And I think the Scottish is something that a lot of people can aim for, particularly if there's an easy way into it, isn't there? To start doing some road nationals and see how you go in them, and you do them week in, week out. All of a sudden, you've got a bit of bike fitness, haven't you? And it helps with from living down south, you can learn a little bit to ride on the rocks, but people want different things from the sport, don't they? Some people just literally there was a normal centre trial, wasn't there, that we could have gone to today, which is like literally like 10 minutes from both our houses, and it would have been a good day out. But I was quite excited. I couldn't sleep last night because I was excited about coming up to ride this trial, and I just don't get that kind of buzz from centre trials anymore. It's
it's a very different thing, isn't it? And I think it depends when some riders are starting to come into the sport as well, doesn't it? We see a lot of people coming into the sport around our area, like later in life.
Yeah.
We haven't got a very strong youth setup. Well, we do. We've got the YDS, which is really good, but there's not loads of youths in our centre, really. Not like there used to be when we were kids.
No, it was different when we were kids. I think there was a lot of like youth-only trials, which I think were really good.
Yeah, we don't really have that as much now. The youth tend to ride the same trial that we're riding, don't they? But yeah, it's something that I think anyone who wants to go do the Scottish, go and do some S3 rounds. And that can give you a real good gauge of whether it's something that could be achievable or not.
Yeah, definitely.
Like if you can get around S3 rounds, like relatively hassle-free, like fitness-wise, bike-wise, all of that, then there's no reason why you can't have a good attempt at the Scottish 6 Day, as long as you treat it with a bit of respect, really.
Yeah, definitely. They're shorter days, aren't they? We did 14 miles today, I think.
Yeah.
Which is much shorter than a day in Scotland. But
yeah, like a day in Scotland, for example, is 100 mile roughly rather than 14. But yeah, long down.
Yeah, but I don't think.
Thing is, well, you only get one go at the section, so you get used to looking at the section and riding it. You don't think, next lap I'll be able to do this, whatever. You only get the one go at it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, well, that was quite interesting. I will talk about one bad ride I saw Craig have when he basically had a one almost on flat ground.
All right, cheers.
After kind of not getting up quite, you got up the bank all right, didn't you? But it just didn't quite go to plan. You got a bit offline. You have to have a one. There was nothing.
I was going to fall literally down a big ravine of it.
And it was like, if you rode that section again, you could ride that section 20 times and you'd never have a one in that place.
Yeah. And so to some people that can be frustrating, the fact that they can't have another attempt. And then there's the other side of it, which I quite like, is that's it, it's happened, get out your head and move on to the next one.
Something that I struggle a little bit with, like kind of centre trials, where sometimes the standard, particularly on expert routes, may be a little bit harder than what we would have done today.
Yeah.
At centre level, sometimes you end up riding 3, maybe 4 laps, and if there's a section you don't particularly fancy, you think, oh, I've got to do that 4 times.
Yeah, true. There's that side of it, isn't there?
But at a national, you think, oh, I might not fancy that, but okay, I've only got to do it once. Let's give it a real good go. And, it's only going to hurt once if I crash, not going to crash on it 4 times or 3 times. And sometimes by the time you are like, kind of, you fired the section twice, maybe 3 times in the trial and you've got to do it again, you kind of think probably the same thing might happen.
Yeah, you can start to dread it a bit, can't you?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Innovation in trials is what the Jitsi brand is all about. Combining our extensive experience in trials apparel design with the new era of energy-absorbing performance from rayon has enabled us to create the most protective, most comfortable, and most lightweight range of trials protectors. Developed to move with you on the bike, light, airy, and flexible when in motion, but intelligently stiffening on impact when you need it most. Available online and in store at BVM Moto.
Anyway, a lot of Scottishes between the 3 of us in here. Any advice you would give to the average Joe blogs looking to do the Scottish 6-day for the first time, Dad?
Be as fit as you can.
And going on to that then, would you say, because we've all got busy lives, would you say it's better to, if you had the choice or the time, you can either get out on your trials bike for an hour or go to the gym or some other form of exercise? What's the best thing to do, would you say?
I would say gym and what have you.
Would you?
Yeah, because you ain't going to get the time in on your bike unless you've got a day off every week, or if you're working, you're not going to get the time in on your bike. I always thought swimming was good.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of swimming on the build up to school, and I do as well. I think it's good for stamina, isn't it? Swimming.
You would need stamina.
And to ride any particular event beforehand?
The S3s are good. Like say, road nationals, get used to walking a section, walking at the section, walking back, getting on your bike and ride it. There's sometimes in Scotland where you ain't got time, unless you're really quick across the moors, to take all day looking at one section.
Yeah, I think quite often I get a lot of newbies to the event want to ride near me, not because of my riding ability or anything like that, but purely as like a pacemaker, to find the pace of what you need to go at in Scotland. Like, I'm not fast by any means, but I know what pace I need to ride at throughout the day to make sure I'm in with time. Where, if you go and watch some of the top riders, they'll take forever in a section and then go flat out across the moor, which, one, I can't keep ride at that pace, and secondly, if you do, you're just going to exhaust yourself more or end up having some more bigger crashes, aren't you? Like you say, like finding that pace of how to ride at.
Yeah. Another thing is a good coat, and I could never get on with leggings, so I never used leggings. But
Waterproof trousers, you mean?
Yeah. What you do, and a lot do now, is wear shorts, isn't it? Which is probably a better idea than actual leggings, because you won't get them caught up in the foot bags.
Yeah.
Keeps your bum dry.
Yeah, a lot of the time I wear it more so not to stay dry, but to try and keep the wet bogs and more off of you, which can
You say that these are waterproof shorts, by the way. They're not.
They're
not just like riding the Scottish in shorts.
No, yeah, true there. And they're not like swimming shorts. They're like waterproof over trousers, but they're shorts. Mott's do them, and Jitsi have done them in the past. I think they still do them.
But used to cut them off, don't they?
Yeah, used to cut them off, but you can now buy them as shorts. So it just means that the excess material around like the lower part of your ankle and such doesn't get caught up in the chain and tear and rip like you quite often see, and it just helps keep the rain, the wind, and also that horrible boggy stuff off your backside, which just makes it a bit more enjoyable if you're not soaking wet and freezing cold, doesn't it?
Something that like the Spanish riders started, didn't they? I know when I kind of was riding, kind of like 10 years ago, that's what a lot of the Spanish did. And to start with, it was almost like, what are they doing? Why have they got shorts? But it is actually really good.
It's now actually like, yeah, they started it off, I remember, you're right, and everyone used to look at them and think, God, that's weird. And now it's almost become the fashion to have them, like a fashionable thing. But fashion goes out the window in Scotland, doesn't it? It's like you want to keep dry and warm.
Good, breathable coat. That's the thing that's really improved things over the years, is that your riding gear. When I first started riding Fantics up there, you have the team sweatshirt, which is great, and a team coat perhaps. And after it'd been washed once, it'd let the water in, and your sweatshirt would be wet within the first 5 minutes, and then you'd stay wet and cold all day. So don't worry about what it looks like. Practicality is what it's all about. Don't need to overdress either.
No, it's quite easy. Like, I don't know, everyone's different, but I overheat quite quickly when you get out on the moor. Hence why I now carry a bigger backpack, much to my dad's disgust. And I'll take off layers, but I'll have that option to put them back on if I start getting cold again. Because the road work can be super cold, a bit like today, it can be freezing. But then when you're out on the moor or at groups of sections, you can soon start boiling over if you're not careful, especially if they're physical sections.
Then you sweat, then you get cold. If you don't kind of take the layers off and then put them back on again, that's not really a good way to do it, is it? You did that quite a lot today, didn't you? You kind of put your jacket off and on again, to make sure you were maybe a little bit warmer down the roads, to try and you appreciate it a bit more then, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Like today, it might have looked a bit faffy, and I think Laurence, you were shocked that I did it actually, but I was getting cold on a few sections, which made it hard work. So I was putting on my thicker coat between sections for road work. And then as I'd walk the section, when I dumped my bag off, I'd then take off that outer coat to ride the section. And for me, I just think it worked a lot better. And it only really adds on 30 seconds to your day to do that at each section, maybe.
Yeah, that's something else that kind of normal centre trials, no one really carries a rucksack, do they? And for the road nationals, in particular for Scotland, you basically a Camelback or any brand of other brands are available of kind of what are they called, hydration packs.
Yeah,
are pretty like essential, aren't they?
Yeah, it's something that's come in again over the last 10, 15 years more so. It used to be bum bags, but now we've all got these hydration backpacks where you can have fluid, which you obviously need to try and keep hydrated throughout the day. You can pack all your tools and spares into it, and also some food. But this is one of the things that me and my dad still argue about to this day, actually, with the event. Bearing in mind, my dad is a very handy guy, and like workshop wise, he's very good at maintaining bikes. He does a bit of work for BVM. He preps and maintains both mine and Laurence's bikes a bit for us, where we don't have loads of time on us. But he can look after a bike and maintain a bike with just a handful of small tools. And my dad would always use a very small backpack and carry the bare minimum. So you never had to take your backpack off at sections of the Scottish, did you? Where I am the complete opposite, where I like to have proper tools so it's not fiddly and awkward for me to get certain things done on the bike if I need to do something out on the roadside. And I'd rather have more space in my backpack to be able to take a few extras in case of any scenarios that might occur. And something that you complain about every year to me, that my bag is too big and too heavy to ride.
So two things there is if you take your bag off at every section, you have 30 sections a day. If it takes a minute to take your bag off, put it back on, ride off again, that's 30 minutes in your running time you've lost that you could use to go steadier on the moors, to go look at a section a little bit longer. And if you sort your tools out and perhaps do like we used to do, you'd have a 10 mil and a 13 mil spanner on the same spanner. It meant cutting them in half and welding them together, but it saves weight. Why take a 12 mil spanner, should we say, if you ain't got a 12 mil nut on there? Change a nut from a 12 mil to a 13 just so you don't count with one spanner. Things like that. Think about it. Save weight. Save time.
Yeah, my only argument against that is I'm kind of going up there trying to get a good result at the event as well. And I find that I can't ride to the best of my ability in the section with a backpack on.
Heavy.
Yeah, because it's too heavy. Yeah, there is that. Although I still feel like even with a 2-litre bladder on your back, it's still a bit of weight there. Don't know. What do you think, Laurence? I can't ride as well when I'm wearing a backpack. Can you?
No, it's got to be, in my opinion, you've got to take your backpack off. You want to, but that extra weight kind of weighing you down in the sections. And it's something that took me quite a long time in Scotland to work out is the sections are doable. And you kind of almost get to a section and take your rucksack off and like, I'm going to try and clean this now. This is the part of the trial that's actually the competitive element, because they're so long, the distance between the sections that you're racing across a moor for what feels like an eternity, and then come to a section and slow everything down and walk it and properly and really try and clean the section that's in front of you.
I suppose, is that the difference, say, like, no offense, but you're like clubman expert level. Were you there at the sections thinking that, or are you just thinking you just want to survive the whole event looking at the bigger picture, or were you competing, so to speak?
Well, I was definitely trying to compete, but no, I mean, things have changed over the years. But like I said, if you took when I first started, it was bum bags, didn't have a hydration pack on your back. But once you did, taking that off, and like I say, that's 30 minutes a day you're losing.
Maybe for, depending on what kind of skill level you're at and what you're trying to get out of doing the event, you have to weigh it up, I suppose, don't you? Which way to go about it, like either the way that, say, me and Laurence would, or the way that you think to do that.
All the weight you're carrying, it's not just in the section, it's also across the moors, which you shouldn't underestimate the length for the moor crossings.
Yeah.
So longer moor crossings, which is, in my opinion, the right thing to do out there. Make it more of a challenge. But, you've got to sort out your spanners, sort out your spares before you go. So you don't need to carry all that. If you practice, I remember the first time I practiced, this is tubed tyres. We only used to have 1/4 of an hour in the morning. I could change a rear tyre in 1/4 of an hour. I practiced doing that. And I don't think I actually did it in the end, but I knew I could do it if I had to.
Some else is not to carry anything that you can't use, which is something that's, I think, some people do it with some of like the higher tech bikes, like the Vertigos, where you might carry, TPS sensor or, relays, rectifiers.
Yeah, there's no point carrying those things if you don't actually know how to swap for those out, is there? Like, what's the point of you carrying?
Yeah, they're all quite simple things to do, but Vertigo TPS might go down, and you can, if your bike's got the latest map, you can reset it in the middle of a field or middle of a moor. But practice doing that, or I know a rider who a centre rider, basically was carrying back wheel bearings in his rucksack, and it was like, why on earth are you carrying them?
Yeah. There's no way you're going to be able to fit those on the moorside unless you've got a hammer with you as well.
Yeah, I don't think he had a hammer, but yeah, he obviously, I don't quite know what he was thinking. But
is that the rider that also broke his handlebars on the second section of the day? Is that
Yeah, it might be. Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
Good old Henry Bendel. Shout out to Henry. What did we do? We started at Trotter's Burn.
Yeah, and the second sub of the day, he snapped his handlebars,
and he was lucky enough to have some people that he knew that were ridden to the section on trail bikes, and they had trials handlebars on their trail bikes, and they took the handlebars off. And he was also really late away that day. I think he's one of the last to start. So the back markers basically were waiting for him to change the handlebars. And he went on and finished the event.
Didn't he keep those handlebars on for the whole week?
Yeah, knowing Henry, he probably would have done. There's a lot of, I know Henry Bendel very well. We had a lot of battles with each other when we were both riding week in, week out. And I think the first year he rode Scotland is old man Alf was up there doing the support, but he was doing it, I think, on a motorbike. I'm not quite sure that's right, but he basically wasn't worried about Henry at all, and they got Henry a push bike to cycle back from Parc Fermé to the caravans that they were staying in. But it wasn't like a modern, mountain bike, a decent one. Part of the Bendel family own a scrapyard.
Okay.
And they got this push. I hope this is right. It's the kind of a bit of a local legend, but the push bike came from the scrapyard. Didn't want to like an expensive bike that might get stolen or whatever. So Henry would ride a day in Scotland, and then after it's only a few miles, but after a day in Scotland, you didn't want to cycle. I wouldn't want to cycle anywhere.
That's Borsidinas for you, isn't it? I reckon.
They breed them different that side of the river, don't they? They're different breed over there.
Well, they've currently come into a bit of a traffic jam on the M6.
I come to Birmingham, haven't we?
Yeah.
Problem.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
Birmingham.
You could explain how long a day is. You could do Rick's story.
What's Rick's story?
Quite. Basically, I think quite a good way of explaining Scotland is something that Rick Ferrier, who's also the third member of BVM, he's ridden the Scottish twice. He explained to me that you start off and you'll ride down the road for so long that you're bored of riding down the road. And when you start off going down the road, it's quite good fun, isn't it? You're blasted along,
Novelty.
Bit of a novelty. And then you'll get off the road and then you'll go down some forest track, and it'll be so, you get on the forest track and it's like, oh, this is a novelty. This is great. And it's so long till you're bored of the forest track. And then you'll get onto a goat track, and you'll go along the goat track for so long you're bored of that. And then you'll do a section. I can remember there's one goat track on the Saturday that I suspect you still did.
Yeah. No, you didn't. It'd bloody kill your back, that would.
And you go along this goat track, and you can't get up any speed. And it is literally it just feels like forever. It feels like we've just, we're doing a 3-hour journey home. And it feels like you're on that goat track for 3 hours. You're literally, that's how long it feels anyway. You're just riding along, second or third gear, miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
I think that we've actually got a video of that moor crossing with that goat track on our YouTube channel. I think we do.
Or to Loch Churn down to towards First, and I can't think of the name of the.
But basically, it's on Saturday, and it literally kills my back. I don't know whether it's because I'm a taller rider or something, but it absolutely destroys my body doing that goat track.
I used to love it. I mean, you say second or third gear, you want to be in higher gear than that, save fuel.
I used to tell myself that we weren't even halfway yet. I used to almost play mental games and be it's so long that we're not even halfway. We're not even halfway, and like know the scenery and know roughly how long you were. But yeah, and speaking of fuel, my brother, when he rode the Scottish, ended up, how did he do it? But basically, that was it. He's Montesa. We were doing on Montesa 4RTs, and he was having a really good week till the Saturday when he managed to get his Montesa stuck in first gear, and he was determined to finish. He really, he was on for a first class award. And he ended up basically, the bike was still riding first gear, so he did the goat track in first gear.
I was riding near that year, and he actually overtook us.
Yeah.
He was riding that bike so hard, wasn't he?
He was riding it very hard. He's riding it in first gear.
Only a Montesa could do.
And in Montesa
survive
to do it. And I don't know, you probably shouldn't say this, but we will. It's a few years ago now. I don't think he'll be excluded now. But he was basically carrying fuel because he was in first gear, so the bike was burning so much fuel that we got to the fuel stop, and that was when do they still provide you with water at the fuel stop? Yeah. Basically, we had he emptied out some water bottles, filled them with fuel. The army guys were like, yeah, crack on, mate, fill them with fuel. And he was basically carrying this extra fuel to be able to get round, and he managed to finish.
Can you remember that time when me and you were riding together and they ran out of fuel at the fuel stop and it was a baking hot day?
Yeah, I can remember that time when they did. Was it like a crash with the...
the wagon that had the fuel on crashed, which was bringing like the second load of fuel.
Yeah, the fuel wagon crashed. It was bringing the second load of fuel, and basically we were out of fuel and we were right in the middle of nowhere. Right in the middle of Rannoch Moor, no phone signal. So
by a lockside with the baking hot sun with no shade.
And you just came round, we were quite late that day, and you came over this hill and there was just like the whole of the entry was there.
Yeah.
People you hadn't seen all week. And they basically just held us all until they could get some fuel to us. But no one else knew what was happening, did they? Like Craig's dad had been doing the support, my parents were doing the support, and they were just waiting for riders. And basically the whole entry was just sat in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. We were there, I reckon, a good hour before anything turned up. And like you say, there must have been riders there who were there 2-3 hours, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they slowly kind of set us off again. I think, did we not bother riding any more sections that day? Did they just send us round because they were worried about us getting back in daylight?
Yeah, they cancelled the sections and we rode. I remember it being, they kind of were setting us off at like some form of intervals. They did delay, didn't they?
Yeah, they did some delay. I can't remember if they did that or they literally like, once you filled up, you went, that was it, you could go. I can't remember, but it's a long time ago now. But
yeah, because we were on delay, which I don't think they like doing so much anymore, but it was really good in the fact that if there was a big queue, you'd give your route card in and then the observer would call you to ride the section. So you didn't lose any time. So there was no pushing in the queue. You got that time of the queue back, which was much more relaxing than kind of everyone fighting to get to the front.
Yeah, I think this year, 2024, I had a bit of a not a great experience that we were at WD's, which was a really tough section last year because the water level was so high. And there's a humongous queue there. And I went to hand my card in to the observer for delay, and they said, no, we're not doing delay this year. And whether that was just that particular observer was like, I'm not doing it because it's a lot more work for them, or they were told to, I don't know. But that ended up resulting in riders trying to skip it and go up and ask for fives, which then delayed the observers for the riders that were trying to attempt the section. And like, it was chaos. And personally, I was kind of, at that moment in time, I was still in for a top, on for a top 100. So I was trying to save any mark I could. So I queued for bloody ages and attempted the sections to try and claw any marks back that I could. And I was like way behind, I think, Ian and Ryan, who had asked for fives and got cracking. It was just made it into a bit more of a stressful day for me that day.
That was the day you dropped the GoPro as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That section.
Yeah, that's the day we lost the GoPro. Poor thing. So there's some fish out in the lockers, or Loch Ness Monster is making vlogs now, or watching our vlogs on the GoPro.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a section where like WDs is a double sub, isn't it? And if you can't kind of get out, you kind of have to almost go back down, or there's like an exit art way out.
It's steep.
Yeah. So that's the type of section that can cause delay. Speaking of delay, I've got a delay story of when I got on the wrong ferry.
Oh, we're allowed to talk about that now, because when me and David tried to take the piss out of you when it happened, you weren't having any of it. We weren't allowed to mention it.
No, it was all my own fault. They do. You have a ferry crossing, and they give you delay when you're on the ferry. So I arrive at the crossing, and Craig and my brother David are quite a few riders, probably like 15, 20 riders in front of me, like in the queue to go on the ferry. So I basically go forward, I hand my delay card into the official, go forward to talk to them, and end up getting on the boat with them. But my delay card was not on the boat. The official I gave my delay card was doing the next crossing, so to speak. So I was basically one side of the lock without my card. And they called out like everyone's number. You know, the officials are giving the cards back, and there's no card for me. And I'm a bit of a panicker. Like I'm a bit of a, don't like it when things don't kind of happen. So I had to wait the other side for hopefully my delay card to come over on the boat. And like,
did it come over?
Yeah, it came over. Yeah, but you're like, that card is like, it really tells you how long you've got.
That card is like your whole world when you're in Scotland. Like, you cannot lose your card, because that's almost like your identity. That's your ID for the day, like letting everyone, the organisers, know who you are and where you are at certain times. It's like, it's very important for you to go and lose it on a ferry, Laurence.
Yeah, so I basically thought, not only have I lost my card, but I'm going to get loads of time faults, because I've been on this ferry for feels like forever. And I remember literally, this is like the Friday, riding back to Parc Ferme, and basically being so annoyed that I just literally put my bike straight in. But I didn't kind of try and work out if I had any extra time or anything like that to work on my bike. I was just I just had enough. But I give my bike in, and you even noticed.
Me and David had already got back, done work to our bikes, put our bikes in, and both your parents and my parents weren't back at Parc Ferme, because they also have to wait for the ferry crossing. So it's a day where you kind of have to hang around a bit before your support crew get back. So I think we were in the beer tent, or there was a bit of a tent at the time. Yeah. And I remember around 45 minutes later, after we had a nice chat and we're chilling in the sun, Laurence comes along with a face like thunder. Can't remember what David said to you, your brother. And I just remember you going, "Shut up, David, I'm not in the mood." And then me and David looked at each other and just started laughing. Which didn't go down very well, because you can be a bit of a flapper sometimes. You're a bit of a flapper today, actually, when we were worried we missed a section. Yeah. I was a bit like, I know you're about to flap. So I was just like, "Don't worry, Laurence, we'll go in a minute and have a look just to make sure." But I could tell that you were flapping, because you kept coming up to me going, "This can't be right. This can't be right."
Yeah, and I normally carry the program around with me as well, so I know where I am and how many sections are in each group. And I left it in the van, so I didn't even have my program to tell me.
You've got a bit of a funny story as well, haven't you, Dad? About, was it the first year where I went the wrong way?
Yeah, the first year. Well, we rode around together your first year, and I think it was the Tuesday run, wasn't it?
Yep, Tuesday.
And just outside Fort Augustus, you go off the road and you go up into the forest, and the forest leads into a bit of open moorland, not very long, and then you drop down through another forest. Well, you were in front as we dropped into this second forest.
All along forest tracks, isn't it, you're on about?
Tracks. And they also, what you do when you're off-road up there, you follow little pinky orange flags, didn't you, on a cane about 3 foot high?
Yeah.
Which is what you follow across the moors and what have you. Coming off this track, there's a T-junction, and to the left were a line of pink or slightly different colour forestry flags is what they used for the lumberjacks to know where to go to cut the trees down. And you were in front of me, you went left and we were supposed to have gone right. So I traced after you as much as I could. I was sort of probably 100 yards behind or whatever, and I couldn't catch up with you.
Bearing in mind, I was actually following 2 other guys who were in front of me as well. I wasn't the only one. Yeah, there were 2 other guys that I could see in the distance, in my defence.
So I went back to the T-junction and thought, I don't go right, follow the right route, because I know Teresa was in the car down
My mum.
waiting for us. And I thought, how can I go to her? And she says, where's Craig? And I say, I don't know.
She would have killed you.
Yeah, that'd be the end of me, I tell you. So I waited about 20 odd minutes before you come back. And all you could say was, sorry, Dad, sorry. I said, all right, calm down. We've got to get going now, because Tuesday was always tight on time, wasn't it?
And I was in such a panic that I went flat out from there, did a fuel stop, and I actually overtook, this is my claim to fame, I was going that fast, I overtook Michael Brown on the moor. Yeah, but by the time I got to the next group of sections, I'd hit red, and I'd burnt out, and I was absolutely exhausted, and I was like dead for the rest of the day. And Michael Brown then overtook me again, and I never saw him for the rest of the day. But I did actually overtake Michael Brown on a flat bit of moor, because I was so nervous about how late I'd made us that I absolutely went flying. But yeah.
That's it. You do differently now, wouldn't it? You wouldn't panic about that type of thing. You'd try, you can make up time.
Yeah, I think I'm now been a bit of a veteran up there, like 15 times. I know what pace I can ride at that I can maintain throughout the day, and I know that pace is also adequate for me to be able to get around the course in time with a little bit spare for potential issues, whether it be bike or like terrain issues, like getting stuck somewhere or something like that. I pretty much know the pace, the perfect pace for me to be able to get around safely and reserving as much energy as possible for a long old week.
That's something for a newcomer, is to find that pace, because you can tire yourself out so quick. And you got 6 days of it, don't forget. Don't get dragged into following somebody who's quicker than you. Trying to keep up with them. On some of these, like goat tracks especially, you can hit some stones pretty hard because you're trying to go too fast.
Well, yeah, can you remember the first year I had a crash on the moor as well, and I bent my wrist sprocket? Can you remember that?
Oh, Christ, yeah.
I was going a bit too fast. I had a crash on the moor, which you're going to crash. You know, things like that do happen. Even when you're going sensible, it can still happen. Had a crash, bent my wrist sprocket, so every time my wheel went round, the chain come off. So didn't we end up taking the sprocket off and smacking it against a couple of rocks on the moors to try and fly it?
We had to take the sprocket off, bash it between a couple of rocks. It wasn't straight, but the chain stayed on, didn't it? Yeah. Good enough for you to get off the moor to get to your spare wheel.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christ, I was ahead of you, and I get off the moor, I was waiting for a few minutes, and a foreigner come along and said, "You waiting for number whatever it was?" I said, "Yeah, he's got problems back up there," he said. So I had to go back up the moor and find him.
Yeah, that was an eventful. The first Scottish 6 I did was a nightmare, wasn't it? Hence why you did it again.
Yeah, that was going to be my last one, but because we had such a terrible week, I decided I can't finish on a low like this. We'd have to have another go, so we went back again, didn't we?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the year that you basically lost a finger before you'd even got to Scotland?
Yeah, so literally, I didn't actually get on, and I didn't get an entry to the Scottish. I was put on the reserve list the first year I tried, and I got a phone call the day before the Wallace Cup, which is a S3 National. It was called a Nova Gun Championship then, but day before the Wallace Cup, was told that I've got an entry to the Scottish Six Day. Over the moon, so excited. The following day, riding the National, and we were in Seymour's Arena, which is a pretty famous group at that event, which is all man-made arena sections. Ended up having quite a big crash, which resulted in me tearing off a finger and damaging my hand quite badly, which resulted in me being off of a bike for a good few months minimum. So it was like a real kind of stressful time and not a very good body and bike preparation time for the 6th day that year. So I was so unfit, and I didn't realize it at the time until now when I do it. Like it was a real struggle for me to physically finish that event. Yeah. That is something I would recommend, though, if anyone is doing it for the first time. If you can find someone that you know that has done it, or if you could just sort of have a number near them, or just so you get an idea roughly of like pace to go around the event, potentially. I think it's big help going around with someone that's got experience up there. Like I say, nearly every year I do it now, I tend to seem to get one of our locals, this is their first attempt that they're asked to ride around near me, which, I can't really do much for them in the event, but I just say, there as a bit of guidance for kind of pace of the event, I suppose.
You helped Tyler quite a lot, Tyler Rendell, this year with the timing on the Saturday, didn't you? Because you were very early and you managed to time the day very well and kind of stop Tyler brushing off.
Yeah, like Tyler's done the event. That was the second time he's done it, but he had a year off in between due to injury, I think. But Tyler, being young, is a bit hot-headed and worries about time and wants to rush on when he doesn't need to. So he quite likes riding around with me. So he's got someone to kind of pace him. Yeah, if I have a figure for the week. This year, I was first man away on the Saturday, on the final day, which means every section is horrendously slippery. Tyler was second or third man away, and Tyler was really on the sharp end of the competition, like in the results. So I tried to hold Tyler back a bit at the start of the day to let a few riders get ahead of us to try and just scrub some of those sections in a bit, which made our life a little bit easier. And I could see, he was stressing about it at the start, and I held him back for a while, and I sort of tried to keep him back, and it ended up working out perfectly. I think on the day we finished with 3 or 4 minutes to spare. So we timed it to perfection, really. We did have to rush the last group ever so slightly, but it was a group that he cleaned anyway. But that just came down from like pure experience, a little bit of luck, but yeah, that I think really showed my experience up there at that event, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite hard to pace yourself, isn't it? And know, when to rush, when not to rush, whether you're behind on time. It's quite difficult to do all that, isn't it? And it's only really experience that tells you that, I guess.
Yeah. And bike prep your bike well.
Yeah. Do all the importers now, do like a checklist, get it as early as you can and go through it, make sure everything's done. Practice things like changing a foot brake lever, make sure your tools are all right. Just be prepared. It'll make all the difference.
And also, I know we own a bike shop, but don't have to go up there on a brand new bike. You can go up there on a bike that's 2-3 years old easily, as long as that bike has been well maintained, and when you're up there, isn't needing anything done to it. Like you can't go up there with your linkage kind of with a bit of play in it, can you? Things like that. Your bike's got to be in top-notch condition. That doesn't mean you have to go out there with a brand new bike necessarily. Just make sure it's been well maintained and it's ready for a hard, tough old week.
Yeah, definitely. Like a new bike still needs maintenance as well. So, if you buy a new bike kind of kind of traditional time for new bikes coming out, it's like October, November time. It's a bit more all year now, isn't it? But, you buy a new bike and you do it at the Nationals for Scotland, prep for Scotland, you're going to have to do linkage, wheel bearings, change the sprockets, all of that, before you go. It's 600 miles, isn't it? Basically, it's a good way of looking at it. Like, that's a long way on a trials bike. So you want it all to start off nice and fresh.
Yeah, exactly. Some people think they could just buy a brand new fresh bike and roll it out and go straight up there, which it isn't the case. You'd want to be packing that bike with a bit of extra grease. And personally, I've done the Scottish on brand new bikes and bikes that have done 2-3 Scottish 6 days. And some of the bikes that have been the least hassle and trouble-free are bikes that are done a few more hours, done a bit more work.
Know how the bike feels and that.
Yeah, like how the bike engine note of the bike sounds. Like you can tell if something's not quite right, if it's getting a bit hot or not when it's rather than being a brand new bike where you just don't know the bike.
Yeah, that's it.
Like extras you can do to your bike as well, isn't it? It's I'm sure it's like kind of, I'm sure none of the manufacturers would mind me saying that their bikes aren't really designed for Scotland. They're designed for riding the World Championship, and Scotland's not that, just the distances involved and things. So keeping the water out, kind of so many little kind of mods you can do to a bike, kind of different.
The water in, is it?
Keeping the water in, keeping the water in your radiator and out your airbox and out your carb,
And we've even got a few videos on our YouTube channel which shows some of those products that help for the events like that, don't we?
Yeah, I think there's a few little products for kind of nearly every brand of bike that if you don't have for Scotland, you really are kind of at quite a disadvantage, aren't you, really?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, we're actually not that far from home now, I don't reckon. So yeah, not far away. So I think, should we leave it at that? You got anything else to say, Dad?
No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for looking after us today.
Yeah, we hope the audio quality's all right. We have literally been in a van.
Yeah. We haven't had to listen to Radio 4 or whatever radio station you've listened to. Right. Thank you very much. And we will speak to you again soon. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Bye.
Keep up to date by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.